Oh, it's not even using the hook.
Yes, this is an albino.
Albino. Okay, so this is an albino monocle cobra, and this snake is part of the venom milking program that they do here. I'm gonna see if I can get him to hood up, maybe, if he will. No, he doesn't look like he's very interested.
I was gonna say, if you do that.
There we go. Get a little bit of a hood right there. Okay, so I get a little bit of a hood coming up right there. And so cobras will hood up to try to intimidate a potential threat. And so that's why it comes up when you touch him on the back and I start moving like that. But then otherwise you can see this snake just trying to get away, right? Puts the hood down and is just trying to escape up underneath that crack like that. But yeah, so the hood comes up to try to intimidate a potential predator, which is us right now. And a lot of people think that if it hoods up, it's because it wants to attack. And same with the rattlesnake. Oh, it's rattling, it wants to attack. And it's like, no, it's actually the complete opposite. It's warning you and giving you the opportunity to leave. If it wanted to attack, it would not hood up and it would not rattle. If there was a rattlesnake, it would just be quiet and then bite you, okay? Now, this one, though, we're going to go ahead and pass off to Ray. He is the pro, as you guys saw. There you go. Yeah, move that camera in and check this out. So he's going to go ahead and get a hold of the snake's head. Look at that. And then he's going to have it bite onto this. So what's covering that?
A Walmart shower curtain.
There you go. Professional quality. So he's extracting the venom right now. And so what are we extracting the venom for?
This venom's being used to make a pain medication called Niloxone. It's a homeopathic type medicine. It's not regulated by FDA. It's for pain.
Wow. Would you mind if you got like some close-ups of the snake's face right there?
Sure.
The lighting's a little rough in here, but man, check that out. That is so cool. Turn the head a little bit like that, yeah. Now, the way that Ray is holding it, he's not hurting the snake, and I mean, Ray is the utmost professional. He knows how to handle these snakes to keep himself safe and keep the snakes safe, so he's not hurting it or anything like that. And man, they're just so cool. So a lot of people are surprised to learn that there are many, many different kinds of venom compounds. It's extremely complicated. But within this extremely complicated soup of venom, around the world, all different kinds of venomous animals, from snakes to fish to scorpions, all this kind of crazy stuff, the way that they kill their prey can often have very surprising benefits if you can extract a specific compound and then use that in medicine. And so that's what's being done with this venom here. And there have been numerous different applications of medicine from venomous animals, like with Gila monsters and diabetes medicine, right?
Correct, yeah.
And what are some other examples?
There's medications for heart medicines, like Altace is an example that uses Malayan pit viper venom. There's several different medications that use some components or another of snake venom.
And it's just incredible. So this venom evolved to, like in that case, like specifically to shut down your heart or affect your heart in a specific way. And you can then take that and dilute or modify or whatnot, and then use that for an application that actually save lives. And this really speaks to how valuable animals are around the world, even if they are venomous things that we consider to be very dangerous to humans, like, oh, kill them all, they're snakes, they're venomous, all they do is kill people. It's like you're losing that potential medicine, that medicinal value in these animals. And so that's why it's so important for us to try to do work like this and try to analyze venoms and figure out what's going on in there, how can we use that. Now, speaking of venoms and whatnot, Ray here does some really interesting and incredible work with diluted venom and injecting himself to gain a resistance to a venomous snake bite. Can you speak more on that?
Yeah, I use 9 different venoms, 5 cobra venoms, 2 different mamba venoms, coral snake. I'm probably going to forget a few of them. Boom slang, for example. It's diluted venom, as you mentioned, and what it does is it increases your resistance to the effects of the venom. So you can't really be immune to the effects of venom, but you can be resistant.
All right, so a bite from this animal without medical attention would kill me without a doubt. But for you, what effect would it have on you?
There's always pain, edema, the swelling, ecchymosis, the pooling of blood under your skin. That's about it for me. It doesn't stop me from breathing. It doesn't paralyze my respiratory system. That's what the self-immunizing does for me.
Okay, so what makes a difference between somebody who, so some venomous snake keepers can get bit, or even just working around venom and inhaling the venom dust can become hypersensitive. So what's the difference between somebody becoming hypersensitive versus resistant? Is it just a crapshoot?
Well, they're opposite ends of the pendulum.
Right, so but how do you dictate which way the pendulum swings?
You can't really. Everyone's body is different. A lot of people that self-immunize like I do, and Bill Haas, I learned from Bill Haas from Miami Serpentarium, oftentimes you develop hypersensitivities to some components of the venom. For example, about 10 years ago, I was getting allergic symptoms to one of the venoms in my mix, so I had to figure out through process of elimination which venom it was. It turned out to be Eastern green mamba venom. So I had to pull out all the green mamba venom and slowly introduce it again and hope that my body would combat it, which it did in my case.
Wow.
Bill Haas went through the same thing where when he was weighing out venom, of course at that point it's already powdered, it's lyophilized in powder venom. Just breathing it, he was getting reaction to it. So he had to wear a mask when he was weighing out venom. So a lot of people, that's why I'm not a big proponent of, I don't recommend self-immunizing to a lot of people, because you don't know when you're going to become hypersensitized to one of the components of the venom. If you don't know that you are, or you don't catch the symptoms, your next bite could put you in an anaphylaxis and kill you in like 8 minutes.
Right.
So it's a very dangerous procedure.
And so just for people out there who are like, this means I can inject diluted snake venom and I'm like Superman? No, this is a process that takes time, meticulous skill, right? Yeah. How long does it take?
Well, when I started doing it, I was using a dilution of 1 to 10,000. So that's like 1 drop of venom mixed in with 10,000 drops of sodium chloride. And then I slowly worked up to what I'm at now is about 1 to 50 ratio.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is stronger than it really needs to be.
Well, how many years was that though?
Well, I've been self-immunizing since 1991, but
wow.
I worked up to that ratio many, many years ago. Bill Haas worked up to 1 to 1,000, and he used to ask me, why am I using such strong venom? Because your body really doesn't need it. You're just trying to remind your memory cells in your blood, hey, this is the antigen that we're looking for, and it sends the antibodies to attack the antigens and neutralize them.
So cool. Okay, so you mentioned Bill Haas, and if anybody out there is like a big fan of snakes, Bill Haas is a legendary figure in herpetology. I unfortunately never got to meet him, but I was first handling venomous snakes under Joe Wazalewski, who used to work for Mr. Haas. Yeah. And so what was your experience with him? And can you talk a little bit about him? He pioneered this, right?
Yeah, he started self-immunizing back in the mid-40s. I want to say 1946, 1948, something like that. He was using 32 different species of venom in his shots. They were more diluted than mine at the point that he leveled off to the booster shots. I do my booster shots every 21 days. I don't remember how frequently he did his, but probably the same thing. I'm not sure.
Wow. Yeah, just imagine like what's going through your head when you're the first guy to do this and you're like, is this gonna work? Like, it makes sense.
He proved that it worked.
Yeah, he proved it.
He was bitten 173 times before he died. He died at over 100 years old.
Yeah, wasn't he 101?
He was 100 and a half.
100 and a half.
Almost to the day. He was 100 and a half. He was 2 weeks short of being to the day of 100 and a half years old.
Just
and was bitten 173 times. I've been bitten 57 times, I believe, in 34 years. So it does work. You know, it's a proven science. It's just it has its innate risks.
Right. And again, for everybody watching, don't try this on your own. This is
definitely don't do it without being under the care of a medical doctor.
And the only people who should do this are people who work with these animals day in and day out, like Ray. Like, I handle venomous snakes. I would not start doing this because I don't handle them every day, and it's not something like it's a cost benefit, right? Risks and rewards. And like he was saying, the hypersensitivity issue, like for me, the reward is not there for me because this is not something I do all the time. But for him, the reward is very much apparent. Yeah. He's in here all the time handling venomous snakes.
Yeah, it's an issue of does the risk outweigh the benefit? And for most people, it does not. If you have less than, 20 snakes in your care, and you're not doing venom production, you're not importing and exporting like I've done, and you're not exposing yourself in a lot of hands-on with venomous snakes, it's probably not a good idea to do it.
Yeah, and I just know there's people watching that are gonna be like, well, I'm terrified of cobras or rattlesnakes or whatever, and I'm so afraid I'm gonna get bit by one, so I want to do this just in case I ever get bit. No, absolutely not. No.
There's an easier solution. Don't get a cobra.
Yeah. There you go, right? So just to give you a little bit more of a disclaimer and why Ray does this and what his credentials are, what are your credentials, Ray?
I have a doctorate of science, an SCD of science in zoology, specializing in herpetology.
Okay, so he is a professional, top of the food chain, guys. Again, this is not something anyone should be doing unless you are in his position, right? So I just can't say that enough. You're not going to be like, I'm worried about a snake getting me, so I'm going to inject myself with snake venom in my garage that I ordered on Amazon. Like, no, don't do that, please. Okay. That's a bad idea. So you were talking earlier off camera, you're talking about your rattlesnake bite.
Yeah.
Do you want to put him back?
Sure.
And we can talk about that?
Mm-hmm.
The snake's been sitting there for like 15 minutes, like, why are these
very
snakes
well
talking so
mannered, too.
Okay, so you had a rattlesnake bite. What species?
Eastern diamondback. It was about a 6-foot specimen that animal control caught and brought to me.
Okay, so if you don't know, like prior to modern medical care, a bite from an eastern diamondback was like 90-something% mortality, right?
Yeah.
Like if you got hit, you're dead. That's it. So this is even with modern medical care, a large diamondback is an extremely dangerous snake. So you want to run through like...
Yeah, I would say an eastern diamondback is... I know a lot of people say the black mamba is the most dangerous in the world. I don't personally agree. I believe an eastern diamondback is the most dangerous. The worst snake to get bit by, in my view.
Okay.
It's a very hard bite to treat. We have great anti-venom, thank God. I use 33 vials in my bite. But it's a very complex venom. It's not just neurotoxin, like coral snakes are pretty much strictly neurotoxin along with crates, and there's like 5 different toxins in rattlesnake venom. You have hemotoxins, neurotoxins, myotoxins, cardiotoxins, and cytotoxins, all in one type of venom. So it's a very difficult bite to treat.
So you're saying that in the after...
And they also have a very high yield.
Right.
It has a large eastern diamondback has a higher venom yield than gaboon vipers, king cobras,
really?
All the snakes that everyone previously thought.
I always thought kings had the highest yield.
No. Most cobras, I mean, you see how very little we get out of a bite, and some of these are 5 foot, so multiply my king cobra in there is 13 feet. Just do the math. It's not that much. If I brought him in here and extracted from him, you'd probably only have between a half a milliliter, maybe up to a milliliter. And you can they've gotten at a large eastern diamondbacks, they've gotten over 1 gram per bite, which is 5 milliliters.
Wow.
Of fluid. 5 milliliters of fluid venom processes down to about 1 gram.
Okay, so, because I know if you've seen my videos before, guys, you'll know, like, I caught a black mamba in Botswana, and I've caught, I don't know, like over 100 eastern diamondbacks here in Florida. And to me, catching that mamba was way more scary than catching a diamondback. I mean, I'm just more comfortable with them.
It's an easy snake to get bit by, and black mambas have the fastest acting venom, but it's a lot easier to treat a mamba bite. If you can get that patient to a hospital quickly, it's a lot easier to treat a mamba bite. Mambas are pretty much strictly neurotoxic venoms. A friend of mine self-immunizes pretty much primarily with black mamba venom, and he will literally just take his snake and make it bite him. And whereas I use syringes, I feel like my method's a little more scientific.
Oh yeah.
but he is so resistant to the effects of black mamba venom that he has no problem grabbing his 8-foot mamba and just making it bite his arm. You know, so it's an easy venom to immunize against,
right?
Because it's strictly neurotoxic, like coral snakes.
Right.
Coral snakes are very easy to self-immunize with. Also, it's strictly a neurotoxic venom.
So, just because I know people are going to probably ask this in the comments because I've done videos with both before. So you're saying after the bite, an eastern diamondback would be worse, but would you say that easterns are easier to handle than a mamba?
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's where I was going. That's where I was like,
absolutely.
I'm like, I can't be crazy here because I was like, dude, I was like freaking out with the mamba.
Gaboon vipers are like the easiest venomous snake in the world to handle. Yet it's a very dangerous snake if you get bit.
Okay,
It's a very severe, serious medical emergency if you do get bit by one.
Okay.
They have long fangs. They do have big venom glands, but they don't have the yield that a eastern diamondback has. They don't put out as much venom as an eastern diamondback.
Okay, so to circle back to your bite with that eastern diamondback, because it was a very interesting case because you got a fasciotomy, right? And that. So a fasciotomy is typically a medical procedure used to alleviate compartmentalization syndrome. And so that's where the swelling becomes so severe that it cuts off circulation and it compresses the veins and arteries. But with venomous snake bites, you don't typically do a fasciotomy. But in your case, that was done.
Yeah, in my case, it was absolutely necessary. I wasn't awake for that. Shortly after the bite, I went into a 5-day coma. And me and the doctor, my snakebite treatment doctor, Bernie Korecki, both are adamantly against fasciotomies. But
so why are they usually bad, and why was this a good?
It's unnecessary. Number one, most of the times it's unnecessary. There are some doctors. There's a doctor that published a book that basically said all snake bites should be treated with a fasciotomy, and it's unnecessary. You can do a lot more permanent damage doing that. Antivenom is really the only thing that works. In my case, I was told that my arm looked like a watermelon with 5 grapes on the end of it. You know, as you know, compartmental syndrome is when your numbers are over 30. Mine was 85.
What?
So there was I had no distal pulses.
Wow.
If they did not cut me open, they ended up calling my brother, who's a paramedic, a flight medic, and he came in and just said, look, just do what you have to do. I'll deal with Ray later. But if they had not have done the 8-cut fasciotomy that they did, I would have lost my arm from the shoulder down.
Right.
They do a cut here, a cut here, a cut here, here, 2 cuts here, 1 here and 1 here, carpal tunnel release here.
Wow. And so to make that kind of make sense, if you're like, what are they talking about? So imagine the swelling is so much that it's putting the pressure on your veins and arteries and it cuts off the blood flow. And then the rest of your arm could be lost because there's no blood flow to it. Mm-hmm. So when you make this cut, it basically like opens it up. And so you're like, literally, if your skin's together like this, it's going to open up like this and relieve that pressure. And so that's something they'll do, like if your arm got crushed by a car or something like that and the swelling becomes so great, they'll do a fasciotomy in a situation like that. But in this one, just to circle back, I want some clarification. I have heard that if they do a fasciotomy on a snake bite, it can open more blood vessels to the venom.
Correct.
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's one of the adverse effects that we don't want.
Okay.
Yeah. In my case, when I came out of my coma, like for example, this cut here was so spread apart and just held by these sutures that it was like an inch apart. The skin was and they just daily had to just tighten it as the edema as the swelling goes down. They tighten it up and tighten it up. I ended up having like several different surgeries. The one on the bottom here just went really south.
Wow.
You know, ended up getting infected, which is another problem with fasciotomies.
Right. Yeah. Oh goodness.
And they ended up having to give me a blood transfusion.
Okay.
They ended up giving me some blood.
So
and that's a snake that the Eastern Diamondbacks is one of the snakes that I do not self-immunize with because I wasn't working a lot with them. I get them from animal control, but I wasn't doing a lot of hands-on with them, so there was never a need to add that venom into the 9 that I'm already injecting in. Right. It's a hard snake to self-immunize against.
I was going to ask, are hemotoxic snakes more difficult to immunize?
Hemotoxic and cytotoxins are very hard to self-immunize against. Neuros are very easy.
Okay,
and myotoxins are similar to neurotoxins.
So when you start that process of self-immunizing with a highly diluted venom, what effects does it have on your body initially?
we don't really know. We know it's.
Or what about personal experience? Like, what do you feel?
Well, when I first started, my first shots felt like a pretty good hornet sting for a while. And I used to cheat and inject myself with Marcaine or lidocaine just to deaden the area. And but now it's not. It's a little more than a mosquito bite. But we know it's very damaging to your liver and kidneys. We know that.
Oh, right.
Bill Haas had problem with his liver because of all the venom that got introduced into him through either self-immunizing or his many bites. So we know it's, and I get liver function profiles pretty frequently just to check mine. So far, mine's fine. But that's what filters out the venom out of your body, your kidney and liver. So
right.
It is very toxic to those organs. We know that. But so far, it's not been a problem to me yet.
Okay. Wow, that's just crazy. So a story about Bill Haas that I think is so interesting. You know the specifics more than I would. So didn't he give someone a blood transfusion and save their life?
Yes, he did. He was made in Venezuela. He was made an honorary. They gave him some kind of award. He went over and donated some of his blood. I guess they didn't have access to the anti-venom, and they flew him over and they transferred some of his blood into the patient. The patient lived, and I want to say it was a coral snake that bit him.
Wow.
Bit this guy. But he's done that. What people don't realize is that's happened, I believe, around 20 times in his life.
Wow.
It wasn't just that one isolated case. I know there was a case in Jacksonville where he went up there and saved someone's life with his blood.
Like it just.
And one of my friends up in Port St. Lucie got bit back in 1995, and we exhausted all the antivenom that Miami Antivenom Bank had and that Bill Haas had at his facility, and we were basically out of antivenom, and I offered to use my blood, and it was an option that they were interested in, but the doctor said we're going to have to take like 500 milliliters of blood out of you, so it'd be another blood transfusion. Fortunately, we were able to get some tiger snake venom, which works very good on cobra bites, and that worked as well as we could have expected. So, unfortunately, the gentleman died. But he died of the anaphylaxis. He was allergic to venom, and he went into anaphylaxis immediately. And after 8 minutes, he was just down and out. They kept him alive on a ventilator for a few weeks while we were giving more antivenom and hoping to reverse the effects, but eventually it wasn't going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so a question then. Just for two different things. For one, just imagine how superhuman it is for somebody like Ray or Bill Haas to be like, you got bit by something that you are certainly going to die from. Here, I'll give you some of my lifeblood, and now you will live. That's just mind-blowing. Like, just think about it like that. Like, you are 100% about to die, but if I give you some of my blood, you now live. Like, that's incredible, you know? And imagine, this is the way my brain works. Imagine without modern science of an understanding of this, and just like, imagine if you knew this, if you were transported back, like 3,000 years, and you were like, now you will live. Dude, you're a god. It's so crazy. But back to the science side, I like to think about fantastical things, but back to the science side, so let's say you were to give a blood transfusion to somebody, and let's say it was something like that, 500 milliliters. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you got a blood transfusion from somebody else to get you back up to normal. And then if you got bit, let's say the next day, you're in serious trouble.
Probably so, yeah. I would need time to rebuild those antibodies in my body, yeah.
And how long does that antibody memory last, do you think?
I honestly don't know. No, I don't think we know that. We know about the memory cells in your blood, but we don't know how long. I know I took a break from self-immunizing. I went for like 2 years around the beginning of 2000, yeah. I went for almost 2 years without self-immunizing. I put everything on break for a couple years and came right back into it and started using the same shots that I was using before, the same amount, without any problem. It was probably 8 months later I got my first bite, and everything was fine. So I can say that in my case, certainly within 8 months I regained my resistance
Okay, that's
after a
fascinating.
2-year break. So,
Right.
and the fact that I could go straight away after 2 years and inject the same thing that I was injecting 2 years ago without any complications. I was expecting some problems, but I took the chance, and fortunately I was right.
Wow. So speaking of Ray's amazing abilities here and the ability to be able to take a bite like that, I was actually with him one time when a king cobra got him, and I was there, and you were fine.
Yeah.
Like, it was insane. Like, I was right there. Like, we were taking out a king cobra to handle the photograph, and I just saw it. I actually heard it, too. Like, I heard the fangs enter the skin. It kind of sounds like you put a knife in, like, plastic that's, like, stretched tight. And I heard it, and I was like, oh, my God. And then I was like, are you okay? And he's like, I'm fine. No big deal. And he was. It was no big deal for him. He was totally fine. Now, that same snake, Naga, actually also bit Tyler Nolan. So a lot of you guys probably know him from his YouTube channel as well. Do you want to talk about that at all, or like his effect and what happened to him?
Well, he was, I was not here when it happened, but from what I understand, he was handling the cobra because he was trying to get some shots of Naga for I believe it was for a tattoo he was going to do for somebody.
Yeah.
And the snake was in a shed. So that's a point against them. It was a very hot day, and they were kind of overworking the snake outside in the lawn when that was legal to do back then. And the snake overheated. It was trying to get out of the heat, and it was in a shed, so it's already irritated. And because some of its sight is diminished from being in a shed, they go off tactile.
Right.
You know, it was the touching of the king cobra, and it just shot. He held the king cobra up like this. The king cobra shot down and bit him on the finger.
Right. And for those who don't understand, the difference here, why he's saying it was tactile, is because cobras, most cobras are kind of an easy snake to handle in many ways because they're very predictable, because they're very visually oriented. So they're easy to distract. And so you can get away with a lot of stuff with a cobra because you can visually distract them, keep their focus elsewhere and off of their tactile senses. But in this case, when they're opaque, they're about to shed, there's a liquid, this bluish liquid that goes between the ocular scales, and it prohibits their vision. So it can't see very well. And so in that situation, it's going off a touch much more, and it's much more likely to come back and try to bite your hand instead of focusing on another handler distracting, right?
Correct. Yes.
Right. So
even in India, where they do the thing with the flutes and all that.
Yeah.
You know, we all know snakes don't have ears, so they can't hear the music. They're not dancing to the music. They're following the motion of the instrument that they're playing, whether it's a flute or whatever it is. And that's what's getting the cobra to dance, so to speak. It's following the movement of the flute.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's interesting as well is that same snake, right after Tyler got bit, he asked me to get the photos that he wanted, and I came out to photograph that snake like within a couple of days of him being hospitalized and whatnot from that bite. And one of the Venom 1 guys messaged me. He's like, hey, like he used all the anti-venom, right? Like if you get bit photographing that snake now, like you're dead. I was like,
yeah, I had 5 vials left.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's not enough for a king cobra bite. 5
Yeah.
vials is not enough.
So with his bite, he lost his finger, and would that not be considered unusual for a king cobra?
That's unusual. It's my understanding that the fang actually went into the bone, and he ended up with an infection.
Okay.
So yeah, that's why he lost the finger.
So typically, king cobra is mainly neurotoxic, right? So
Pretty
it
much,
shouldn't
yeah.
cause limb loss or digit loss.
No.
Okay.
It's very unusual that happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was it.
But I believe he's still having some effects from. They do have a cardiotoxin in their venom. King cobras do, and I understand that he's still having some kind of effects from the cardiotoxin.
Okay.
I would verify that with him, but that's what I understand.
Yeah. I'll have to ask him. I mean,
Yeah.
I just saw him last weekend, so yeah, we'll
Yeah.
have to check with him.
Yeah, he's top-notch handler though.
Okay, so something else about snake bites that I think a lot of people don't understand is just how complicated they are. And just how it's very difficult to say, like, if you got bit by this, what would happen? And it's like, well, you don't really know. There's so many complications involved, like where the venom enters your body. Is it in fatty tissue? Is it in muscle? Did it hit right into an artery? How does your personal chemistry react to it? Do you go into an allergic reaction? So many different things can happen. So in your case,
Your immune system.
Yeah, but for
your
you,
immune system, your age, the age of the snake, how much, if any, venom it injected into you. There's so many variables. I get asked a lot, how long would I have if I got bit by this particular snake? There's no way of predicting that.
Right.
It's
That's exactly
impossible.
the question I was trying to come around to. So, because I know people will ask you.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly where I was going. You already know.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's fascinating. It's crazy. I don't know. Anything else you wanna share on this topic?
No, I think you had some great questions.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, again, guys, Ray Hunter, we're here at Tom Crutchfield's Reptile Farm. I've been friends with both of them for many, many years. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.